This episode of what my dad taught me is slightly different because my dad didn't teach me the definition of emotional intelligence. However, indirectly, he taught me how to be emotionally intelligent and recognize emotions and be empathetic in many different ways. We're going to get to that in a second. The definition of emotional intelligence is the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. Now, this is going to be a longer series on emotional intelligence. This is something that I teach my children and teach my students. I drill it into my students over and over. When they're dealing with something emotionally and they call what these young kids call crashing out, I take them and I go through this equation. Everything in life is math. I put their emotions through this equation. I ask them, you have to have the capacity to be aware of your emotions. So how do you feel? What's going on? So they express how they feel. I'm like, all right, cool. I said the second part is to control. The third part is now to express it to who you need to express it to. But at the very beginning, there's one word that is most important. Capacity. What does capacity mean? Capacity in this context means to have space for your emotions. You have to have space for these emotions, and that looks different depending on what's going on in your life. I'm gonna give you an example. First and foremost, I wanna ask forgiveness to my baby cousin because I'm using a circumstance that's very traumatic to your life. I don't wanna call any names out or anything because again, like these are real people. But when I was in college, one of my favorite cousins passed away. I found out that morning she passed away. I'm not going to go into details because it was a very traumatic situation. But I found out she passed away. And then that evening, I had to referee flag football. I was a referee in college. And normally when people talk crazy to me, especially as a ref, anybody ref knows that people are going to be stupid. But today, I threw a flag on this dude. He started going off, and now I want to get active. I feel like putting my hands on somebody today. So after the game, he on the phone, he talking to his mom, and I'm a BA this and this BA blah, 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 blah. And I just remember I'm walking off the field this way, and I hear that, I take a sharp beeline, I'm going directly to him. Not saying a word, not going back and forth with him. Today, I feel like fighting. But hear me out. Was I mad at him? No, words don't typically hurt me. What I value personally is not being beat up. So as long as you talking, those words don't trigger any type of emotional response in me because they're not turning into physical harm for myself. So I'm gonna be tripping on it. So why am I going to go fight him today? I really feel angry and hurt that my cousin died. So I didn't have, because of my cousin's death at that time, I didn't have the capacity to deal with what he was dealing with at the time. So he was trying to put something inside of my personal space that I didn't have room for. So now I want to lash out at him. That's what capacity means. You got to have space to deal with what you're going through. And that's way deeper than what's going on. I remember on another episode, I was speaking to you about this young man that I used to coach who was fighting all his teammates one day. Come to find out, he found out that his big sister was found an hour and a half away from Longview, Texas, where we were at the time. And she was found in a house with 6 grown men. She was kidnapped. So when he was fighting his teammates, he wasn't mad at his teammates. He was really fighting those 6 men that he couldn't get access to. So the only access he had was the kids that was in front of him. So he chose to fight them. That's what capacity means. At that particular time, that young man who never behaved like that ever at practice, he didn't have the capacity to deal with what was going on at that particular time, so he lashed out. So from an empathetic standpoint, we need to be able to see, oh, this person is out of whack. That's one thing my dad did teach me. Because he seen that young man behaving like that, and he said, go ask him why is he out of whack. The why is important. But from a personal note, the first part of this definition of emotional intelligence is the capacity to be aware of your emotions, control your emotions, and to express your emotions. So it's all about self. You have to understand this yourself. Today in class, we was going over this emotional intelligence topic, and I asked the students, when was the last time you seen an adult obey this emotional intelligence definition? Almost no students raised their hands, which is a red flag. My generation, the generation that came before us and those who come after us, we expect these kids to be emotionally intelligent, but we're not. Part of the reason why we're not is because we don't even know the definition. That's what this is for now. We're going over the definition. But I asked him, how did his mom show emotional intelligence? He said she woke up in the morning, early in the morning, and she realized that she didn't feel her best, not necessarily physically, but emotionally. So she called her son into the room, told him, hey, I'm not feeling the best right now. I don't know what's going on. I need you to get yourself ready for school and get to the bus. Now, I did a demonstration in class. I told my students, I clapped for his mom when he told me that. And I said that was very brilliant and beneficial to everybody in that household. Because what parents normally do is never say a word about how they feel. They just think, I have to keep pressing on. And instead of expressing how they personally feel, they just lash out and yell at everybody in the house. Get up, pick up that. I told you to get over here. Get to the bus. I told y'all to clean this up yet. Now you're redistributing your trauma onto your kids. And now your kids have to go to school with starting their day off being yelled at, which is going to translate to them being out of whack when they get to school. And now it's a trickle down effect. When all you had to do in the morning is be emotionally intelligent and express your feelings to your children judiciously, which means fairly, empathetically, which means understanding that they are human beings and they're going through something too. To have empathy is just to understand what somebody else is going through. So if you know you don't want to start your day off being yelled at, why would you do that to your children? Talk to the children around you. Ask them how often do they start their day being yelled at. Most of them will raise their hand and say almost every day. Parents, that's us, that's my generation. What are we doing? Do we have emotional intelligence? Do we know how to express ourselves to our children? The thing about our children don't do what we tell them. They do what they see, and they do what we train them to do. So if we feel a certain kind of way and we lash out and we yell at our kids, what do we think our kids are going to do as they move on through life? What they saw and what we trained them to do. We train them to yell and to be emotionally unintelligent. So that's what they're going to do. It's up to us to change this system. But it starts with having the capacity. In order to have the capacity, you have to clear out trauma that's in your body. You have to go through therapy. You have to express your trauma out of your body. And you have to take time to heal. Many people talk about healing in our generation. Healing is not the only thing that we need. I'm going to use the physical body as an example. If I break my leg right now, first thing I have to do is repair. After I repair, I'm going through a healing process for my bones to mend back together. That's going to take about 3 to 6 months. All right. So 3 to 6 months, I'm not walking normally. There's another stage after this called rehabilitation, that most people don't talk about. After you go through your healing session, that's where you clearing things out. Then you have to rehab. That's when you re-strengthen this, and hopefully you can make it stronger than what it was beforehand. A lot of people skip over that rehab part and they just sit there and they just go through the crutch. We have to heal our emotional capacity. We have to get all that trauma out so now we can accept more from our loved ones that we need to. I'm not telling you take on the weight of the world. Take on the weight of your children that you created. They deserve a safe space. Also, once we heal, we have to strengthen ourselves emotionally. We have to study our emotions. Why? Ask yourself, why do I feel like this? I went through this discussion with my classes the other day. I had a student that is a phenomenal student, phenomenal young lady. But she always come to me, say that she in this situation, this person messing with her, that person messing with her. And I just did a math study with her. I said, come do this math problem with me. And I put on the board 3/12. Then I put 6/24. And then I put 9/36. I said, simplify all these fractions. We simplified it. 1/4, 1/4, 1/4. I said, what's the common denominator in all these fractions? 4. 3/12 is very different numbers than 6/24. They're not the same numbers. None of these numbers are the same. 9/36 is not the same as 3. All different numbers, but 4 was the constant in all of them. So I asked her, if you went to it in this situation over here, that situation over there, that situation over there, you're the common denominator. Why are you constantly in situations? You got to look at yourself and say, why am I constantly in these situations? When you keep getting in situations like that, you are filling up your emotional capacity, which means you are more prone to snap and go off and lose yourself mentally and get yourself in a situation that you don't want to be in because you filled up yourself, you filled up your emotional capacity. That's your fault. You have to figure out, why am I always in these situations? Once you figure that out, now we can fix the issue and stop being in these situations, because some people feel like they're being picked on. But how are other people in the same environment you are not in the same situations you are? It's because they're making different decisions with how they exist in that environment. You have to figure out how to control your environment. Rule number 7, always be a leader. If you allow people to control how you behave, that means you're a slave. A slave can't be a leader. I tell my students all the time, free people have to make different decisions. A slave allows the circumstance to dictate what they do. A free man dictates what they do with the circumstances that they're given. Just because somebody say, come in here and do this or else. No, you got options. Or else is the option. You may have to take that or else if you want to live as a free person. So you got to think about that. So I want to close this episode with just telling you, be aware of your emotional capacity. You have to have capacity to deal with life circumstances. If you know that doing too many different things is going to fill up your emotional capacity, then now you got to manage those different things you're doing. You may have to let something go for your mental health. Okay?